So good.
When the forces of nature collide against those of mankind, what or who could stand between them? With everything at stake, only one hero can save us and restore balance to the region. He must befriend powerful gods capable of creation and destruction. And he must challenge a group so evil they would threaten the very fabric of reality itself. The epic saga of a hero who would become a master. Of a boy who would become
the very best, like no one ever was. To catch them is my real test.
Hello, all those fans of yellow rodents, sentient snowflakes, spectral swords, and just about everything in between. Welcome to So Good, where I talk about my favorite things, and the things that make those things my favorite things. That's simple enough, right? So by the opening and overly dramatic intro, I'm sure that most of you have probably already figured out what this series is going to be about. That being the transformational franchise known as Pokemon, or Pocket Monsters if you're feeling particularly like a hipster. Back in its oh-so-humble beginnings, Pokemon was a simple concept pioneered by a group of talented developers at Game Freak, including Shigeru Miyamoto, Ken Sugimori, and Satoshi Tajiri. These talented developers working at Game Freak had pioneered a simple idea for a new mobile game. And no, I am not talking about that kind of mobile game, I am talking about the kind of mobile game you had to play on a brick. The idea was, you are an adventurer going out on his journey to become a master of creatures called Pokemon. You get your first starting Pokemon and you set out to beat all 8 gyms, which are basically Pokemon trainers whose job it is to test you in battle. Hopefully after that you go on to beat the Indigo Plateau or Pokemon League. Along the way you just so happen to topple an evil criminal empire by emasculating their boss, catch every single Pokemon in the entire region before the world's most famous scientist is able to, and defeat your most bitter rival.
I've never seen such a weak trainer before, though I'm way too strong. And awesome too. Lost? It's over already? How could I lose when I gave it everything I had?
And all that was done at the young age of 10. The game was simple, sweet, and fun. However, no one, and I mean no one, could have predicted just how quickly the concept would sweep over the entire globe, especially in an age where the internet was pretty much non-existent and marketing was basically what you saw on TVs and newspapers. For those of you old enough to remember the days of elementary school back in the 90s, you may remember the seemingly overnight shift that took place on the playground. One day, people were playing tag or jumping headfirst off of slides, as kids love to do, and the next day, everyone and their brother sat in the shade with their Game Boys, cards, and toys, raving about a yellow rat and his comatose best friend, Ash. It left a few of us bewildered to say the least. However, the rest of us caught on quick, and thus the seeds of nostalgia were planted and Pokemon's future was secured. Over the course of the next 2.5 decades, Game Freak, the Pokemon Company, and Nintendo would all continue to produce games, plushies, toys, merchandise, you name it. So nowadays, after 7 generations, soon to be 8 and 9, and so on, the Pokemon Company is still doing better than ever. So what is it about this franchise that took the world by storm? Why have kids loved this series so much that when they grow up, they're still willing to spend $200 on a device they will use exclusively to play Pokemon? Why is Pokemon a multi-billion-dollar industry, and how do they so consistently manage to stay at the forefront of pop culture? Or, more simply put, what is it that makes Pokemon
So good and tasty?
To answer such a question, I think it's important that we take a look at the most famous aspect of Pokemon, that being the main series games. I'll be covering the other aspects of the Pokemon franchise like the anime, the merchandise, and the manga in my next video, so stay tuned for that one. I think we can all agree that Pokemon is a very simple game, built around a simple concept to be played on a simple console. But before my fellow Pokemon fanboys take this the wrong way, let me just be clear. I don't mean this as an insult. I'm just calling it like I see it. Just take a look at this wonderfully nostalgic heroine. The pixels were mostly one color, but if you had the Game Boy Color, wow, you were treated to a whopping 4. Those reds and greens really make you feel like a Pokemon. 7 out of 8, too much Pokemon. Now let's take a look at the game features. Pokemon has essentially 3 gameplay mechanics. You catch Pokemon, you battle Pokemon, and you trade Pokemon. And you know what, you could honestly add evolved Pokemon in there, even though most Pokemon were evolved through leveling them up or trading them anyway. And that is essentially it. You spend the whole game, some 60 to 80 hours, catching, training, evolving, and trading. Simple, right? Even taking a look at the sprites, which, don't get me wrong, they're cool and I honestly love the designs, but some of them just, well, let's just say Mew used to be this thing. But in all sincerity, these games were very simple, and the truth is that they have stayed that way. Look at newer games like Pokemon X or Y and Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. Save for a few fun and definitely immersive features, these games have the exact same main 4 features as they did in the first games. Those being the tried and true catch, battle, evolve, and trade. Now, Pokemon's simplicity is actually a good thing, because it serves as an excellent foundation on which they built all other Pokemon games. But most importantly, it's because those 4 mechanics are just plain fun. That being said, while these mechanics are indeed fun, things have a tendency of getting boring quickly if they stay exactly the same. So how has this franchise not gotten boring yet if, like I just said, they have stayed mostly constant throughout the games? Well, if you ask me, it's because Game Freak has managed to build on top of these 4 fundamental mechanics, and they've managed to keep those mechanics intact while they add, rather than trying to revolutionize from the ground up with every sequel. Game Freak has innovated in many ways. For starters, Game Freak is constantly adding new Pokemon into their universe, and these Pokemon are well-designed creatures created by artists that adhere to the style and precedent Pokemon has set up with their previous generations. Game Freak is consistent with their designs, and each generation of Pokemon is pretty distinctly Pokemon looking, with signature style looks, eye shapes, plump bodies, and designs that stick with Pokemon's themes of types. What's more is that these designs are brought to life wonderfully by some awesome sprites, and more recently by excellent 3D models. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking.
Consistent designs? Vanillish, Trubbish, and Clink are all stupid, and Game Freak is obviously running out of ideas. I mean, come on, it's an ice cream cone, a bag of trash, and a sentient gear. This is stupid, and it's definitely not Pokemon.
For that, I would raise you a Magnemite, Voltorb, and Grimer, who are respectively a sentient magnet, a ball, and a pile of sludge turned sentient by X-rays from the moon. For Christ's sake, if Tangela can have shoes in its original design, and Alakazam can have 2 spoons, then Incineroar can have a belt made of fire, and Klefki can be a fairy that steals keys. If you didn't have a problem with it in the first gen, then you shouldn't have a problem with it in the 7th. Okay, my rant's over now. So moving on from designs for now, Game Freak has also managed to enhance their games by enhancing, not replacing, their core 4 game mechanics. What exactly do I mean by this? Well, in Pokemon Red, Blue, and Green, these mechanics of catching, evolving, fighting, and trading were brand new, and thus they were fun and intriguing merely because no one had ever played a game like this before. But with the announcement and development of Gold, Silver, and Crystal, the developers behind Pokemon knew that if they wanted to keep their newfound worldwide fandom satisfied, they would have to innovate. So they added more than just 100 new Pokemon, better graphics, and a new region to explore. They added features like items, dual types, a day and night system, IVs, EVs, Pokerus, 2 new types, and an unparalleled breeding system. These changes were groundbreaking to say the least, and they gave players features they didn't even know they wanted until they had them. In all honesty, the amount of depth that was brought to these games with these mechanics alone would have probably been enough for Pokemon to just coast on mediocre games for the next few years. However, this didn't stop them from innovating in future games. In fact, in Generation 3, Game Freak introduced double battling, weather conditions, and the most revolutionizing of all new features ever introduced, Pokemon abilities. These abilities would forever change the way Pokemon battle and find use across all the games. Instantly, Pokemon that were previously weaker, like Clefable, became powerhouses that had new competitive strengths. Over the course of the next decade, countless other features like seasonal changes, 3D graphics, character customization, and mini-games like beauty contests, surfing, and mining were all added to the games, as they truly began to hit their stride in terms of quality and demonstrating what's possible in a Pokemon game. Honestly, just name-dropping these features out doesn't do them justice, as they've done so much to add so many layers to the games, and I'm honestly thinking of making a video discussing these features a little bit more in depth for all those who might be interested. But the future video plug aside, I haven't even begun to discuss everybody's favorite feature added to the Pokemon games, the Shinies. For those of you who don't know, Shinies are simply regular Pokemon who have different color palettes, and for those of you unfamiliar with Shinies, you might think, new colors, that's it? What's so special about a Pokemon with different colors? And to that I would present you with these beauties, and the knowledge that Shinies are only seen one in every 8,192 encounters, so finding one and catching it gives you bragging rights. I can still remember my first Shiny. Picture me, a youngster of only 8 years old. I was playing Pokemon Gold and Silver in an age before the internet, and I stumbled upon a Geodude. But this wasn't just any Geodude. It was a divine golden hue. When it revealed itself to me, beautiful iridescent sparkles flung off its body like the holy grail amidst a sea of cursed Zubats. My breath stopped, and my 8-year-old heart pumped like James Gunn sitting next to a kid in a movie theater.
What is this? A glitch? Some kind of new legendary Pokemon? Geodudes are brown. What the f*** is going on right now?
I steeled myself, took a deep breath, and went into my bag looking for a Pokeball. With hope in my heart and a smile on my face, I tossed the Pokeball out without even weakening the beast for fear of knocking it out. The Pokeball hit the Geodude square in the face, and I zealously mashed the A button hoping that the schoolyard rumors were true and that it would enhance my chances of catching it. Panic ensued, and I nearly flung my 5-head into the wall, but calmer mind prevailed, as I'd figured I'd get another chance. I figured that I'd be able to try again. It just used self-destruct, didn't it? The encounter ended. Beautiful remnants of exploded Geodudes scattered across the region, and I was left in bewilderment, frustration, and devastation. Now, in that moment, this made me hate myself and Pokemon. However, the rage faded after some tears and several therapy sessions, and I actually found a shiny Poochyena that I later caught in Ruby, which definitely made up for it. That being said, this story shares an important part of what makes Pokemon so great, in that it shows how seriously I was engrossed in such a simple feature. All of these features were fantastic, but it's the way they were employed that made players so engrossed in their quest to become Pokemon Masters. You raised your own Pokemon from eggs or from catching them. You were the one who bonded with them and became their best friends, helping them to reach entirely new levels of being. And they, in turn, help you beat trainer after trainer with hard work and dedication. Achieving this feat after all the hard work of training, catching, and evolving left players feeling like they had actually just gone through everything they would need to be the very best. It left us all feeling as if we really were the best that ever was, especially because of the occasional bursts of brilliant storytelling, which ties into my next point, but for the sake of this video, I will end it here. The second part of this video will be coming out later on next week, where I'll be talking about two important things called style and story. So stay tuned for that. Please like, comment, and subscribe. I always like to hear what you guys have to say. And anyway, thanks for watching, and I appreciate your guys' support. This has been So Good Content with another reminder to keep on loving good stuff.